Hi everyone, welcome to MacLeod Creations. Long time no see. Today I'm going to be making a Rosy maple moth doll. These moths are absolutely gorgeous, and I've had this doll on my ideas list for months. Let's get started. For the doll, I had Bonita Femur in mind. She was designed to be a skeleton/moth hybrid. I really like the sculpted details on her legs and her big bug eyes, but I don't need the skeleton torso for this doll. So I'm going to try something new. I'm going to take this Draculaura doll and use her upper torso since it's a normal sculpt. Now, this is where it starts to sound really creepy out of context. Bear with me here. I sawed both dolls in half using a small coping saw, making sure to cut them at exactly the same spot. I kept the parts I wanted, Bonita's head, Draculaura's upper torso and arms, and Bonita's legs, and put the unwanted body parts back in the stock box. I used a piece of sturdy wire to act as a spine and hot glued it in place. Then I used epoxy sculpt to fill in the gap. Hextian often uses this method to give his dolls narrow waists with a corseted effect, but it's also perfect for connecting these mismatched parts. Taking the Bonita head, I remove all the hair, which is pretty tangled and kinda gunky with glue. I also remove the face with acetone. I sand the upper body and epoxy torso and spray it with a layer of plastic adhesion spray, then paint the upper body to match the legs, trying to get the color as close as possible. The plastic adhesion spray helps the paint to grip onto the plastic and greatly reduces the chipping around the joints. Chipping is the main reason I chose Draculaura for the upper body. If and when the paint does chip, the skin tone is pretty close to the rest of the body and hopefully won't be super noticeable. I'm going to be gluing on her hair rather than rerouting it, so I reattached the head once the paint was all dry. Let's move on to blushing. I gave the doll 2 layers of Mr. Super Clear, then shaded the furry texture on her legs to give it more dimension. It's pretty subtle, but I think it makes a big difference. This is actually my second attempt at the face. To be honest, I found this sculpt pretty hard to work with. I did a lot of revision work off camera, which is why there are some sudden jumps in progress. There's also some lighting changes. I got a new ring light for my desk, so hopefully that will help my lighting be more consistent in future videos. Moving on to the hair. As I mentioned, I'm going to glue on the hair instead of rerouting it. I prepared a bunch of yarn wefts and carefully hot glued them to her head. Mozekito has a bunch of great tutorials on making yarn hairstyles. I'll link her channel in the description box below. Here's what she looks like with a full head of hair. I put 2 thumbtacks in her head to mark where her antenna will go. I think she looks much better now after a little bit of a trim. Let's move on to her wings. I made them out of Warbla, which is a thermoplastic. It becomes flexible when you heat it up, and it hardens once it cools down. I made templates out of plain paper and traced out 4 shapes to make the wings. I used my heat gun to soften the Warbler before cutting the shapes out, then primed the pieces with 2 coats of white gesso on each side. Once primed, I paint the wings looking at a photo of a real rosy maple moth for reference. I really wanted to make the wings movable using hinges like Delightful did in her dragon videos. I tried probably 3 times, but the wings were too heavy and wouldn't stay open, so I ended up gluing everything together with crazy glue and more Warbler. It's not the prettiest on the back, but luckily that won't be visible for the most part. For her dress, I used this fuzzy faux fur that I dyed myself. I wanted it to mimic the fuzzy body of the moth. I sewed the dress directly to the doll, and for good measure I even crazy glued the edges down, since the dress is backless to accommodate the wings, and I didn't want it going anywhere. At some angles you can see a bit of an odd shape on her back. I built up a plateau shape using epoxy, another tip from Delightful, in hopes of giving the hinged wings more room to move. That obviously didn't work out, but it still makes a secure base to attach the wings, even if they're stationary. Here's the finished doll. One of the antennae is the one the doll came with. I bought her secondhand, and I think she only came with 1 antenna in the first place. The other one is made from resin, painted to match. I did film footage of myself making the mold of the antenna and pouring the resin, but I accidentally deleted it while I was cleaning old files off my SD card. I'm going to name her Ruby, as the scientific name for the rosy maple moth is Dryocampa rubicunda. I really wanted to take photos of her outside, especially since I have a maple tree in my front yard, but as I'm writing the script, there's about 4 inches of snow in my yard and very few leaves left on my maple tree. Hence these studio-style shots, plus a few of my helpful cat assistant trying to show me that he wants to be a photographer too. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.